Coach, I mean, it's been about 8 months since this team won its first ever national championship. What has your life been like since that historic moment?
Whirlwind is the easiest word to use, and it's been inundated with things to go here or there, but it's all celebrating the fact that obviously the team won, but so did the city of Knoxville, and more importantly, the entire state and the fan base too, and that involves a lot of people. So you actually wish you could do more, but our time has run out, and so it's kind of, the levers kind of switched to the other side in this building at least, and I think everyone's ready to move on and get a fresh start.
Well, when you think about just the celebration of that day, you celebrating with your dad, seeing all the orange that traveled to Omaha for that game, what kind of emotions just kind of get brought up when you think back to all those cool moments?
Yeah, it was difficult because I truly went blank, and there's some parts I don't remember, and it was exhilarating, and then the smile, that sense of, I don't want to call it relief, but there's always the next game, and when it's the last game of the year and it went well for the rest of the night and obviously into the rest of the week and month, there was just a sense of gratification that's really hard to describe. But I've told a lot of people it's little blips and little moments. It's almost like I'm looking at a picture book every now and then. One day it'll be two memories will pop up and it'll bring a smile on your face, or again, gratification. But overall, it's hard to take in something that great all at once.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask next, just because you said you don't remember too much, you kind of blacked out a little bit during a lot of those moments. Is there ever a moment in time where you went back to maybe look at the broadcast footage? I don't know if that's a weird question to maybe see a specific play, like that Hunter Ensley flipping over the defender to tag the plate or anything like that.
Yeah, that one's come up a few times, and that's actually been a clip we've tried to show our team this year to educate them on a couple things that went on with KT's at bat. And then I did one of these speaking engagements. They replayed the last pitch, and I have seen the pitch over and over because it's in our building and things like that, but I had never heard it with sound. It was the first time I heard the broadcast, and so I wanted to dedicate a day or two with Frank or whoever, Josh, and watch a few of those games to reflect on them and really take them in, but just never got to it. So with our season here now, we'll push that off into the distance. And again, it's something, we got an emblem behind us. It's something that's never going to go away. And so I'm in no hurry to fully, celebrate or take in that whole moment. It's been nice that it comes in little blips on the radar screen.
In little waves and things like that, for sure. Cool. And on the broadcast footage, we just also saw glimpses of Peyton Manning, Rick Barnes, Josh Heupel sitting next to each other during the entire game. And I know you guys really embraced in a hug after that celebration and everything. What was that moment like for you, and how cool is it to have their support on that night?
It was honestly, and I can be as selfish as anybody, but I will tell you this, one thing that was the best part about being able to win that final game last year was seeing how many other people got to celebrate in it. And just people in all kinds of different communities telling their story, how they watched it, why their family are Vol fans, and the history of it all, and how much this means to them. It was just awesome. And then when it's those guys that, are your mentors / colleagues / Josh Heupel was a hero of mine as far as when he competed. I was trying to be a college athlete, and he was a superstar on the field. It's pretty surreal, and I was glad those guys were able to get down there on the field. I remember there was a picture somebody sent me. I think it was those three and Morgan, and then my mom, and someone posted, who are these four guys sitting next to Coach Vitello's mom?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, pretty awesome. And if anything, it shows you the loyalty that surrounds Vol Nation, and will show out as long as you give people something to cheer for. So that's what we're working for this year.
Yeah, and I know it's hard to win a national title, but it's even harder to get back to that place with the additional mounting pressure that, the fan base brings and everything. Do you kind of have a similar mindset going into this season, or is it different with the additional pressure?
I think that we have a lot of hurdles, and we're also in a very small window. There's programs and coaches that have had much more, our higher level of success for a longer period than we have. So there's a lot of work to do around here. Just on the stadium, it's kind of a nice theme we've got going on of constant improvement. I will say this, though. The one area we probably have our PhD in is being the target, or being talked about, or being hated or loved. or fans. You know, I remember in 2023, we had a poor first weekend out in Arizona, and I don't get on social media, but even our coaches were talking about the world's crumbling down and all that. So we've at least seen what everything looks like. That doesn't mean it's going to be easy to handle obstacles or adversity, but we've seen what it looks like. We've encountered it before, and I'd like to think we're armed and ready to take that stuff on.
Yeah. How do your players react to kind of knowing that they have a target on their backs? Do you kind of instill a specific mindset in them to kind of block out that noise?
Yeah, I mean, I always talk about Drew Gilbert as an example because so many people know who he is, I should say, and I love him so much. But to me, the whole target on the back thing started when Drew Gilbert showed up on our campus. And he was just a leader of a team, and Evan Russell was like that. That group played with an amount of swagger that was very unique to them, and it drew a lot of attention, plus they were good. So I think that's already kind of been there. There'll be extra words thrown around and maybe a different spin on it. But again, I think if anything, that's something our coaches and players have seen before. Some of these guys are new to Tennessee, the freshmen and transfers and things like that. But hopefully the culture will kind of, consume them a little bit when it comes to dealing with that stuff.
I was going to say the dynamic is probably a lot different from this year to last year with guys like Christian Moore, Blake Burke, obviously moving up in their careers. And I feel like ever since last year, you kind of saw them as maybe like a dynamic duo leadership kind of group. Do you enjoy trying to bring those younger guys up in those positions, or do you find that hard to replicate?
No, it's a blast.
Yeah.
One of the most fun things about coaching college is freshman to sophomore year. You see such a huge jump in that window. And then looking back and see the total progression of a guy like Blake Burke, or of course Simo too. And we've kind of had these little pairs, Jordan Beck and Drew Gilbert were that. You just knew it was coming with their work ethic. And then Blake Burke and Simo was the talent and how bad they both wanted to win. And there's other guys too, but it's fun seeing who's next. And that was one of the themes. We put a poster up in our building when we first got here is, yeah, we weren't winning a ton of games in SEC play, but there was a proud tradition at Tennessee. So we had a label of who's next. Todd Helton, Luke Hochaver. There'll probably never be another Todd, and Luke for that matter too, but who's the next version of that? And it's a challenge. It's fun.
Yeah. And who are you expecting to see really take that next step this season? Who can Vol fans be excited about?
I think Reese Chapman is kind of fallen in this. I think of him because we said Jordan Beck and KT during this interview. KT kind of learned from Jordan, and then Reese learned from KT. And so he's one of those guys that has followed that lineage. It's been so fun to see a guy like Luke Lipsius take Blake Burke under his wing. And again, there's sort of that lineage. So I fully expect to see a kid like him take advantage of his playing time, but there's others too. I mean, Cannon Peebles came in with a lot of fanfare from NC State, but it's a different league, it's a different style of play. So there's an adjustment period in there, and I think he learned a lot from, last year, including the guys he played with. That catching group with Cal Stark was such a close unit. And now Dean Curley, I joke, he doesn't get to hide behind the other big boys. He is looked at as that guy. Yeah. And I think he embraces anything that's difficult or has a heightened sense of status. He runs to it. He doesn't run from it. So he's made to be a leader.
Yeah. This is a little bit of an off-the-field question, but Chris Stamos tragically lost his house in California due to the devastating California wildfires. To see an immediate reaction from Vol Nation to just step in and really want to help, what does that say about the fan base, and was it a surprise to see how much money they had raised?
Not a surprise. I mean, you look at Zakai's situation a few years ago and just how our fans handle everything. The amount of charities, whether it's the Pat Summitt Foundation or you could go on around town, how people take care of people in this area. And they do that all across the country, but it's very unique here. And I try and explain that to kids that are on our campus. As players, you're trying to get a degree and an experience that's going to serve you for 40 years, not 4 years. And I think some kids have missed out on the opportunity. And fortunately for Stom, he loved his time at Cal. He'll always be a Cal Bear, but Tennessee fans are the ones that took care of him. And that smile on his face when he came back to our first pitch banquet, I don't know that there's another place in the country where he can get that. So it's an added benefit. We try and mention it in recruiting, but these kids are all about the here and now. But if you're a Vol athlete and you go about your business the right way in the classroom and in the community, you don't have to be a superstar on the field to be loved forever and also taken care of forever. If you need a job or you're in a pickle or you're on the side of the road and you need a new tire, Vol Nation will take care of you.
Yeah, awesome. And we actually had an opportunity to speak with him after that happened.
Nice.
And he said he called you pretty quickly and he was like, hey, coach, I don't know if this is a weird question, but do you have any leftover memorabilia that, you could maybe send over? Because he had lost so much stuff in the fire, including like national championship jerseys and, his gloves and everything. My first question is, did you have a chance to send things over? And my second is, do you make it a point to bring in such humble guys with that kind of character, or do they sometimes just kind of fall into your lap?
I think sometimes you get lucky. Recruiting goes so fast and the transfer portal turns into a race. But in his case, because of the way it went down, we had the whole summer to get to know each other. And I just kept telling guys, and the other coaches were saying it too, we just want this guy around. And where's that delicate balance of you have too many guys on the team or not enough? And they may have roster constraints coming up, but I look back and I was like, why didn't we just get that done earlier? We needed that type of character, in our locker room. And of course, he had some talent too to boot. But yeah, we were able to do some things for him right away. But the jersey that we gifted, we're going to make a new one for him so that it's got his actual number on it. And, you never want to see anything like that happen, but maybe the newness of the jersey and the way it all went down will add a little extra special something to him. But we'll take care of him as best we can because he definitely took good care of us.
That's really sweet. And we were talking about Vol Nation earlier and how much you're just so influenced by this community. I feel like I don't know another Tennessee head coach who loves Tennessee more than you do or talks about it as much as you do. You're constantly at football games, basketball games, wherever you can to just be involved in the community. Not even just on campus. I know you went to Cooperstown this past summer too. I was there too. I saw you to celebrate Todd Helton in that Baseball Hall of Fame induction. But why is it so important for you to go the extra mile and just make sure your presence is known in this community?
I think, first of all, it's fun. I mean, it's a fun-loving area, and everyone's friendly. And our fans are just as kooky and crazy as other SEC fans. But I'm just telling you, I've been at, and Arkansas was great. I worked there, so it's not necessarily comment on that. But I've been around the league, and I think our fans are more positive than most, which is tough to do when you're a fan because you always want wins and you always want things to go well. So the other thing is I grew up watching my dad at DeSmet High School. He worked at the same high school for 46 years. And that rallying around, I don't know if kids do it anymore, but we went to all the games. And when I was younger, I saw that. So I was jealous and I wanted that. Well, I have it now, but it's on a much more grand scale. So I feel grateful and like showing it that way. And then the other thing is Tennessee's the only place that ever called me and asked, do you want to be a head coach? And again, based off my dad's work, that's what I wanted to do. So I still feel like I'm in debt. And there's a lot of people that do things for me, either on this campus or off it. And so you kind of want to make sure the scoreboard's even. You like the scoreboard being in favor of the Vols by at least a point or a run when it's all said and done. But kind of in my mind, my life's mind table I'm keeping there, I'm still in debt. So I enjoy giving back and look forward to doing more of it.
I know you've been here for a few years, but when you first got here, was it kind of a surprise to see how on board these fans are with just the culture of Tennessee sports?
A little bit for baseball because it just hadn't shown itself to me personally from being in the league, again, before with my previous job. But I always have said I grew up in St. Louis and in a weird way kind of liked and respected and almost cheered for Tennessee at times because of the checkerboard end zones and Coach Fulmer's teams and things like that. So when looking at this job, the ingredient of a big and loyal fan base we knew was there. We just didn't know how it would exist with baseball in particular. And when the pandemic ended and people could come out of their houses, it was one of the most resounding, yes, you could have sustaining success here with fan assistance. Because it's got to be tough to play at home in the SEC to have sustained success. And we were wondering, we probably get some more than 8 people at an SEC game, than we were used to having. But that was wild. I mean, when Evan Russell hit 3 home runs against a big league pitcher, I think we were playing Vanderbilt that day. That was just wild, and that was the first indicator this could be pretty crazy with this relationship between our program and the fans.
And to see how far it's come with you at the helm, how proud are you of yourself for just trying to get this place to where it is now?
Yeah, I mean, when we first got here, it was Chad Zerker, me, and Frank were the first three here, and it was literally nonstop work and confusion and chaos. But then as we added Coach Edlander and then we kept adding staff members, it certainly hasn't gotten easier, but it's been like any task. Instead of one person have to carry 100 pounds, you got 5 people carrying 20. And then you can do the math further and further down the road, and whether that analogy makes sense. It's just, you know, a bunch of people pulling the rope in the same direction. And fortunately, it's going in the right direction. But in this league, it's a challenge. So we're looking forward to, again, a fresh start this year and to see what we can do with this group.
After basketball went to the Elite Eight last year for the second time in program history, and you guys obviously won the title, I feel like that's when a lot of people started referencing Tennessee as an everything school, and I know you referenced it as well. You talk about it a lot. What was your first perception of maybe someone coming up to you and saying that?
You know, I know when it started, I think it started at another SEC school. There was a debate on whether it was a basketball or football school or whatever it is, and it's hard to argue with the facts or the stereotypes. If you just pull the average fan off the street in St. Louis, in my hometown, and say, you know, describe this school, they're going to have 2 or 3 things that pop into their head. But if you really just match up program for program across the country, Tennessee's competitive in every single sport. In the major sports that maybe get a little more attention on TV, there everybody is at. So it's a pride point. And it's also a little bit of extra pressure. You don't want to be the one on campus not carrying your weight. But yeah, it was great to see basketball reach that level. And one thing here, and I'm going on a tangent, but you talk about basketball getting to Elite Eight 2 years in a row. To get to that point, it takes a lot of little things. And for us, we could have had one slide or one catch up against the wall comes out of the glove, or one little thing happened to derail us a little bit, and it doesn't work out where we're talking about some of this stuff. So I realize now more than ever how fortunate you have to be to get to the end. I think a true measuring stick that I hope all fans take this to heart is look at overall success. And this year football was a disheartening end, but what a great overall season. And one play, one game, some crazy things can happen with competition. But if you look at the coaches we have on our campus right now, literally every single one of them, if you give them a big enough sample size, will show you something to be proud of.
Are you close with a lot of these coaches on campus?
Yeah, getting there. You know, we've got Allison was just over here yesterday from tennis, and Brendan Webb from golf. He and I chat all the time, but we're all on such different hectic schedules. Yeah. So it'd be nice to find a way to rally everyone together like Coach Summit used to do, getting everyone over to her house or having meetings on campus. But again, everybody's so busy, it's hard to coordinate schedules. So we're all friends, but it's kind of a distant friendship because even though someone is half a mile away, the schedules are so hectic.
Yeah, for sure. What's the most surprising part about this squad that maybe you learned coming up into this season? The
personality and the energy that's there. And it doesn't like a lot of things, it doesn't truly show itself until the games start. And then what the fans will see or what they'll see, you know, on the internet or just for themselves won't start till, you know, bullets start whizzing around and you're in real competition. Yeah. But when I came back from Christmas break, I was a little taken back at how much energy and personality they had. And it's been impressive. And it's also we'll see how this statement works out. In my mind, there's a little different flavor to this group than the ones we've had the last 4 or 5 years. Not better, not worse, but just something a little different. And so I'm excited about, again, when I say fresh start, I think one of the reasons I've repeated that is because in my own mind, I'm thinking this is kind of a fresh batch of Vol baseball. Yeah. And I think there'll be a lot of constants. I mean, Frank's pitchers are going to be Frank's pitchers and, you know, so on and so forth. But I think it'll be fun to see this new group and how they evolve.
And what are you personally most excited for leading into this season as well?
I think a new challenge. I think, you know, to tackle some of those things like last year. You're the number 1 seed. You're the number 1 seed. You're not supposed to win as far as our team goes. And, okay, well, let's see what we can do with that new challenge. And I think if you start, whether you're retired or still working at your current job, you still want daily challenges that come your way. And when those go away, I guess you're just hanging out on a beach. And I wouldn't mind doing that one day, but for now, I enjoy whatever's in front of us. And you're right, there'll be extra, again, words thrown around, extra pressure and target on your back, all that stuff. Throw it all into one big basket, and let's just see how good we can make this team here, and also how much fun we can have while doing it.
And I know you like to hold your guys accountable a lot of the time. You mentioned being the #1 seed and you never let it get to their head. How does that message relay in a locker room? Like, how do you get that across to them?
I think the league helps you. 1 minute you think you're on top of the world, and it is exhilarating to just win one road game in a baseball series, 1 out of 3. You kind of want to know where the fake grape juice champagne is and bust it out in the locker room. But you also know if you lose, it happens. You might be facing a guy that's going to be in the big leagues, a Garrett Crochet. In 6 months, he's going to be in the big leagues. So dust yourself off, get back up, and get to work. That's the reality of the world we live in, and that's what these guys signed up for. So I think it's overstated as a coach, but the old don't get too high, don't get too low thing. And these guys have learned that lesson, and we have a good group of coaches that consistently preach that in different ways to embed it in their head every day.
Last question for you.
Sounds like it's going to be a tough one.
No, I mean, I feel like I know the answer already, but just for viewer purposes, who are you rooting for in the Super Bowl?
Well, it's the Chiefs by proxy, if that's the right way to say it. You know, I grew up in St. Louis. My mom's from Kansas City. My grandma was there. We always used to visit. We did not have an NFL team in St. Louis. The Cardinals left, and the Rams came so there was a barren part in there. So I cheered for the Bears because of my dad and the Chiefs because of my mom. And then Frank and I actually both recruited Patrick Mahomes a little bit. So there's kind of that cool tie, to the Chiefs in that way. And I just hope for a good game. I will say this, because I know you got some green on there. I still love the way that Jalen Hurts handled the deal with Tua. When the team won, he won. And I still have that picture. We put it in our team group me one time. The confetti's coming down, and Jalen Hurts has the biggest smile on his face when they won the national championship. And if you were a betting man, you could have predicted he was going to have success in the NFL just based off that picture. So happy for him and both fan bases, because we like the Phillies around here a little bit with Bryce and everybody else.
Well, I was going to say you rally around Bryce, he rallies around you guys. What has it been like to have his support these past few years?
That's just wild when you see a guy. That was when I first started recruiting, and you saw him at a young age, young high school age, be better than all the other high school guys. And it's tough on a kid like that to have that much pressure. And what a great example if people would get to know him for how to be as a person and a player. And I think because he has that strong balance of being a great dude, but also a maniac worker and competitor, it's almost like two different versions of him. He's so laid back. That's probably what got him through having to be on Sports Illustrated at a young age. And those are a lot of the best players we've coached here. I mean, Blake Burke is about as big of a goofball as you're ever going to find off the field. And you would see that at times in the middle of games, but no one more competitive and more passionate. You saw that in his reaction when he kind of fell to the ground when we were able to get that final out last year.
Yeah, awesome.